Hey guys, and welcome to episode 10 of Quantifiably Bitchy. I'm Raquella, your host, and today we're going to discuss season 1, episode 10, Buffet Froid. As you can see, the scenery has slightly changed. This is actually the side of my office that I wanted to film on since day one. I just didn't have the logistics to figure it out, but I finally did. And now you can see the really cute part of my office. The whole office is cute, but look at my beautiful art. I can finally display it for you guys, and I'm really excited to be here in this specific spot in my office. I got a new chair. She's pink. She's cute. She's a little squeaky, so if you hear her, no, you didn't. But yeah, welcome to episode 10. In 3 episodes, we're going to be at the finale. So that's really exciting. I think I want to do something special for the 1-year anniversary. I am currently making a second version of my Hannibal mask. So cute. And I think I'm going to do a giveaway for one of these. So I'm working on another one. I'm using smaller gems this time, so it'll be a little sparklier even. And I think I'm going to do a giveaway. So I will let you know those details once I have figured them out. The concept of doing a giveaway is kind of scary for me, but I want to do something fun for you guys, and I'm already making the mask, so I may as well give it away. General housekeeping as always. Follow me everywhere. I am Quantifiably Bitchy without that I in bitchy on all platforms. I am on Blue Sky, TikTok, YouTube. I am on Instagram as well. I am on Threads, but I'm choochling on Threads. That's like my OG name, and I haven't felt like making one for Quantifiably Bitchy yet because it's just so many platforms. But follow me everywhere. I will drop my handle here like I always do. And this week we are delving into a really fun episode. Next time we're going to be doing episode 11, which is our second Chilton episodes of the season, and I'm so excited for it, as I'm sure you all know. But today we are going to do season 1, episode 10, Buffet Froid. So let's go ahead and get started. I will preface this by saying the first time I watched the episode, I was like literally so confused. I had no idea what's going on, and I can't wait to talk about that because it's very much on purpose. So if you're watching this and you're like, okay, I have no idea what's going on, that's the point. That's intended. We'll get into it. But let's go ahead and start the episode. I have it all queued up. No ads. Let's go. All right, opening shot. What are we dealing with here? It's this woman walking to her house in Delaware. She looks oddly like Abigail Hobbs, in my opinion. So that's something I found initially very confusing. Just another like windswept brunette person. Then I'm like, another version of Abigail. Cool. We get this great shot of this like wolf silhouette. Immediate trouble. And this woman's just doing her night routine. We see she has a bird. We see when she's walking into her house, her kind of look at her scary shed and be scared. And then we pan back to the scary shed later. Nice little bit of foreshadowing for everybody. She gets into her bed, only to be very quickly woken by a thud. You notice this kind of general horse theme in her house. Horses on the walls, horse decorations. Again, the whole thing just reminds me of Abigail Hobbs. It's just like very like girl. Her ceiling is leaking in her house, so she goes to check it out. More horses in the hallway. Certified horse girl. The more the scene goes on, the more I'm like, she just looks like Abigail. She's up in her scary attic with her flashlight. We notice the snow is coming in through the ceiling. Oh no, there's a hole in the ceiling. The music is so sinister and so scary. You're just going to like, you're so afraid that something is going to jump out at her this entire time, but it just pans to her stapling the hole shut with some plastic. The angle that this is shot at, it's like she's being watched. I think the whole point is to disarm you and just like scare the shit out of you. And it's working. Again, I think these opening shots are meant to be very disarming, very confusing. You're never meant to understand if you're in reality or a dream, or like even who these characters are, because why do they all look like Abigail Hobbs? But we see her going back to her bedroom, and that this like trail of water is on the floor, indicating that somebody had followed her in there and is now under the bed. And we literally watched her get snatched under the bed, dragged like very classic style, horror style, and the blood squirting out. It's just a very good horror sequence. It has all the kind of classic elements. We all know that Fuller loves a good monster under the bed story. And then we smash cut to Will and Hannibal having therapy, and we're giving no context to what's going on and like what had just happened, if it's real in Will's imagination, a dream, whatever, in the past. Like we have no bearings of what's going on right now. Will and Hannibal are very far apart in this shot. Important to note, the chairs are always very important in these shots. Will is still struggling with the concept that Abigail Hobbs killed Nicholas Boyle and that she ended a life. At this point, we know that she was helping her father pick these victims, so she is not a stranger to murder, even if it's like not directly at her hands, but it still really bothers Will. Will doesn't know this, that she helped her dad, but it still really bothers Will that she was able to kill somebody, because it really bothers him that he was able to kill somebody. And Hannibal's like, you've taken a life. And Will's like, so have you, bitch. And I just love these like very double entendre moments because it's just always so on the nose. And Hannibal is explaining to Will that the reason it bothers him so much is because Will feels like if Abigail was truly able to leave her father behind, leave the murder behind, then Will would be able to as well, because we know that Garrett Jacob Hobbs is haunting him. And if Will can't untangle himself from the madness and the murder, Abigail is not able to either. So it's all this very like shedding of the illusion that Will's going to be okay, where Hannibal wants him to kind of lean into that madness and darkness, where Will is very much resisting it at this point. Will is really struggling with the fact that him and Hannibal are lying for Abigail, and Hannibal is consistently trying to reassure him that this is the right move because Jack will eviscerate her, which I think is definitely true. And I think a big theme of this episode is being alive versus not. Hannibal's like, hey, we understand the unreality of taking a life, which is this kind of like almost dissociation, as like they are not human in that moment. They just are. And he explains them, they are not flesh, but light and air and color. And Will says, isn't that just being alive? And then, do you feel alive, Will? And Will says he feels like he's fading, because as we continue through this episode and through this season, we see Will's mental state kind of deteriorate. And we know it's the encephalitis, but Will is still trying to figure out what's going on. He doesn't know. So we're toying with the idea and the concept of what it feels like to be alive. What if we feel alive? How do we feel when we're dead? Like this disassociation, this struggle to feel in reality at the moment. Will reveals to Hannibal that he's still experiencing lost time and hallucinations. And then Hannibal is like, please draw me a clock. And I'm like, Will, I was like, why? Why are we drawing a clock? And Hannibal's like, just trust me. Draw the clock. Focus on the present moment. Think about where you are and when. It's about visualizing yourself in the moment. So Will draws this perfect clock. 7:16 p.m., Baltimore, Maryland. And my name is willgraham. And we see him draw this good clock. A simple reminder and all is well, right? I love the way this is shot, because as we reveal later, he is not drawing the clock correctly, but we see it through the eyes of Will. Not even later, like 2 seconds later, we see the notebook in Hannibal's hand, and the clock is fucked up, and Will is not drawing the clock correctly. He is struggling with this like kind of spatial awareness, but we are seeing the world through his eyes, and it's another friendly reminder that willgraham is not a reliable narrator. And then we cut back to Will in Wolf Trap, Virginia. It looks like he's come back from fishing. He's got his little dirty little vest on, his fishing rods. He goes into his house. You see he has like all these fish on his back. Gross. He's gutting the fish, he's prepping it. I love this. I love scenes like this because it is directly paralleled with Hannibal prepping food, and we get this nice parallel between Hannibal and Will. Hunting is hunting, right? People, fish, deer. We get these nice little parallels that tie them all together. And I love comparing Hannibal and Will's kitchen too. Will's is very homey. It's very simple. It's like country kitchen, where like Hannibal's is like this very professional environment, but we do see these very obvious parallels between the two of them. Will starts to gut the fish and it just bleeds out everywhere, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, when I first watched this, and even when I watched it again today, I was like, is that normal? Because I don't know anything about fishing and I just don't care. But I'm gonna go with it's not normal, because it's like a huge amount of blood and Will is like freaking out about it. He sees his reflection in the pool of blood. We hear like this kind of like pounding in his ears, and then it's panning to this woman bleeding out, and it's the woman from the beginning of the episode. But again, she looks like fucking Abigail Hobbs. So I found this moment to be very disorienting, which I think is the point, because he's losing time, turns out, and he wakes up in the crime scene of this woman that died in the beginning, and we find out, oh, he is investigating it for the FBI. and he's lost time. He is at hhis house and then he's investigating a crime scene. We essentially see him have a panic attack in the blood and open the door on Jack, Beverly, and the science husbands looking shocked at him. He's washing the blood off in his hands in the sink, which is a really impactful scene and something I think happens a lot in media, where we see the character kind of crying or being upset and like washing the blood off of their hands. And I think I recently like went through this, like a miniature version of this, and it made me like think very hard about Hannibal. My dog recently got her nail cut in the porch and it ripped off and it bled everywhere, and we ended up taking her to the pet ER and she bled everywhere like for hours. And I'm not sure if you're like familiar with when that happens with animals, but when a dog loses a nail, like the blood is just crazy. But I remember being in the ER in the vet and just like washing the blood off of my hands and just like crying because it was just so much happening to me. And it wasn't life-threatening, but it was a lot of blood, so it was very scary. And it reminded me of scenes like this where they're very impactful, and just like the power of having someone else's or something else's blood on you and having to wash it off, the smell, the feels. It's just a very overwhelming experience. You see Jack come in and kind of look at Will and not acknowledge him, and then kind of storm out of the house, very clearly pissed off. And then Will looks down at his hands that suddenly have no blood on them and is very confused. Was there blood? Was there not? Just completely disoriented. He follows Jack outside. This is such a good scene. I love this scene for a lot of reasons, because Jack sees that it's different than the other times. Yes, he's twitchy. Yes, he gets really involved in these crime scenes, but he usually doesn't play around in the blood. Will claims that he was confused, and Jack's like, I don't think so. I know confused and that was fear, and those are very different, because again, Jack is a good FBI agent and he is noticing these changes. And Will's like, I'm no stranger to fear. Like, I feel fear all the time. And Jack's like, I don't think so. This was different. It's so interesting because Will's like, I can see and hear better when I'm afraid. Like, he tries to justify it. He's desperately trying hard to ignore the fact that something is wrong with him, but we can all kind of see that happening. I also love this because Jack's like, Will, you've contaminated the crime scene. You've never done that before.
You sure about that?
Mind you, Will has literally laid down in the crime scene under a plastic sheet. It's just not giving not contaminated. I love that this is the line, the playing in the blood, but like laying in the scene on a plastic sheet, that is also contaminating the crime scene. I'm so sorry, but like Gil Grissom would never let that happen. I think these standards for Jack are so hilarious. He's like, no, you contaminated it. Usually we let you roll around in it, but there's a plastic sheet involved, so it's fine. This, crossing a line. Will reveals that he felt in that moment that he was the one that killed the girl, which is interesting because he's able to step in the shoes of these killers, but he's not usually the one that thinks that he did it. But in this case, because he lost time, he woke up thinking that he was actively killing somebody and not examining her crime scene. And Jack clocks it. He's like, you don't usually think you're the killer. You usually are able to step into their shoes, step into the map, if you will, and reconstruct what was going on in their head. Usually you're not blurring the lines. You're able to distinguish what's going on here. Will chalks it up to just a matter of being confused, which is bullshit. Jack tells him that he's officially concerned about him, and that word officially is important because the whole point of him seeing Hannibal was that he was taking care of his mental health, and it was not on any official FBI records, right? Jack claims to really care about Will's mental health, but is constantly throwing him into these fucked up situations. And Will notices that. He's like, oh, officially, now you're officially worried about me. Like, now it's on paper, suddenly we care. Part of the reason Will was seeing Dr. Lecter is so his mental well-being was unofficial, because we know how Will does not like to be psychoanalyzed. You won't like me when I'm psychoanalyzed, if you remember. Will is very, very resistant to the fact that he might have mental health problems, which, no offense, but of course this man has mental fucking health problems. Don't we all? But he's like very hesitant to admit that. And Jack's like, I don't want to break you. Did I break you? Have I broken you? Bitch, he's been broken since episode 1. And even Will's like, even if I am broken, I can do this job better than anyone here who's allegedly unbroken. Bitch. One of my favorite Jack lines in this episode is, Will's like, well, do you know anyone that can do it better than me, broken or unbroken? And Jack's just like, fear makes you brood, Will. which is a nice little tie-in to like manners and something we're kind of always exploring in this series because Hannibal likes to eat the rude. So we're kind of always asking ourselves, what is rude? I always love when there's snow falling in the scene. It just kind of gives this eerie serenity, makes everything feel a bit quieter. It's in his hair. It's just something light and almost spooky. We find out this victim drowned in her own blood and then just kind of bled out everywhere. The victim fought tooth and nail, clawing her way out, but the perpetrator, the murderer, didn't bleed. And they're like, how is there no blood if she fought her way and clawed her way to try and like save herself, which meant usually fighting means you're going to like dig your nails into somebody and there's going to be blood. So we noticed that there's tissue under the fingernails of the victim, but no blood, meaning that the perpetrator didn't bleed. And they had like diseased skin. We see that the victim has, it's almost like a Joker smile, just like cut her face off. And we find out the murderer was trying to peel it back like a mask, which is another, great metaphor for this episode because Will and Hannibal, they're both wearing masks. How do we take the mask off? What does it mean when the mask is off? There's this like very literal metaphor happening this episode of not being able to see faces and trying to take the mask off and the monster underneath. And then we cut back to Hannibal and Will in therapy. They're standing around each other. Will's pacing around. He's a bit frantic. He still smells the blood on his hand, but he doesn't remember going from Wolf Trap to the crime scene, and he's very distraught. And it stresses him out that he doesn't remember seeing the crime scene before he saw himself killing her in his reconstruction in his brain. So that's why it feels so real, because this loss of time is making him feel like, is he the murderer? Will said the violence he experienced in that moment is more grandiose than what he actually believes to have happened in that moment. He knows he didn't kill her, but there is this heightened sense of violence when he kind of came to and was actively like playing in her blood. And it appears that his reconstructions are slowly blending in with his psyche and it all is feeling real. The killer wasn't vicious. It was more desperate and sad as something else going on at play. Will says that he saw himself in the mirror as the killer and it didn't feel like themselves, as if it was passing through, seeing right through them. There's this idea of like, am I real? Am I alive? And what am I experiencing is real. And he gets the vibe from this killer that they are struggling to determine if they are real or not. I also love the scene with Hannibal and Will because Will's like, I know something is wrong with me. I know that it's not mental illness. I know myself and I know my brand of crazy, and this feels physical, which, as we know, it's the encephalitis. And even with half of his brain melting, Hannibal is struggling very desperately hard into tricking Will into believing that this is all mental health related as opposed to encephalitis, because Hannibal wants to watch this encephalitis kind of play out with Will, and he can't know what's wrong with him because he'll want to fix it. And Will's like, maybe it's a tumor, maybe it's seizures. I just know in my head that it's something physical. He's right. And Hannibal's like, oh, I can recommend a neurologist. But if it isn't physiological, then you have to accept that you might be struggling with mental illness. He kind of makes Will promise beforehand, hey, I'm going to help you. But if the answer is no, nothing is wrong, you might have to accept the fact that you're crazy. It's this odd bargain that he kind of sets Will up for to fail later and to fall in his trap. And Will reluctantly agrees. Cut to this Noble Hills Healthcare Center in Baltimore, Maryland, and Dr. Sutcliffe. I fucking love this scene because why does Hannibal come to this appointment with Will? I know why, but it's like really hilarious because he's like, oh, I'll recommend a doctor to you. But it's like, there's no reason that Hannibal should be going to this appointment with Will. But he's here. It's so he can manipulate the situation, obviously. But from Will's perspective, like he was just like, yeah, come to this very personal appointment, please. Like a cute couple. It's like when you have your partner come to your doctor's appointment with you. That's what this is giving. And that's why I love it. They've always been boyfriends. Okay, so many things to break down about this scene. We find out that this is an old colleague of Hannibal's from Hopkins. So that's really important to note here because Hannibal is able to trick this doctor and lie to him and manipulate him. And they both work together at Johns Hopkins, which is like considered one of like the best hospitals in the world. So we're dealing with a very good neurologist here. Like to be a neurologist at Johns Hopkins is like not a small feat. It's a big deal. So we're dealing with someone who's incredibly intelligent at the height of their profession, like obviously knows what they're talking about. He says that Hannibal's one of the most sanest men he knows, which is great because it does add to Will trusting Hannibal and just like how people in the medical industry trust Hannibal. And he was like, oh yeah, we used to work together another lifetime ago when he liked to get his hands dirty. But now he's all fancy and likes to play in people's minds. And that's hilarious as an audience member, knowing full well that he is chopping up human bodies on a daily basis. So just so much good dialogue here that leads us to be like, okay, this is why people believe Hannibal in the medical community. He's very trusted. He knows what he's talking about. He has all these colleagues. He's able to trick some of the smartest minds in medicine. Will is wearing his glasses. He is attempting to hide in this scene despite wanting to figure his shit out. I also love this. So I'm like, why did Hannibal come with him? But not only that, but Dr. Sutcliffe is like, tell me when your symptoms started. And Will's like, 2 to 3 months ago. And Hannibal cuts in and he's like, back when we first started meeting 2 to 3 months ago, when he started solving these crimes, like, why are you answering his medical questions for him? Is he your wife? Yes, but not yet. Anyway, love that detail. We then see Will in this little gown going into, what is this, an MRI machine, a CT machine? I don't know, this giant machine. Yeah, you scoot your little ass up on that table, Will. And before he even gets in the machine, Will cannot hear what Hannibal's saying, but Hannibal is talking to Dr. Sutcliffe and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, it's encephalitis. And Dr. Sutcliffe is like, how the fuck do you know that? And of course, our baby Hannibal's like, I can smell it. Duh. I love the whole like Hannibal can smell other people's sicknesses because I think it just again portrays him as this godlike character. He is unkillable. He is just above and beyond everybody else. He can smell brain disorders. And Dr. Sutcliffe is surprised, but not really, because he's like, oh, you used to like call out nurses for their perfumes in medical schools. Like, obviously we have this history of like having this incredible nose, and it's just evolved being able to smell people's brains. And Dr. Sutcliffe is like, please enlighten me, tell me what it smells like. And he's like, it's a very sweet heat, which just reminds me of like, I don't know, like a wings order or something. Hilarious. A fevered sweetness. And then the doctor's like, well, if you suspected, why didn't you say something? Like, why are you just letting him go around with encephalitis? Which is a great question, Dr. Sutcliffe. And Hannibal has this great little moment too where he's just like, I didn't want to assume that I could smell it, which is this great like fake humble moment for Hannibal, because we all know he knows he's right, but he kind of uses it as this like plausible doubt in this moment where it's like, yeah, of course I didn't. Is smelling someone's encephalitis like a real way of diagnosing? No, of course not. This scene is great too because it's like Will is like literally on like a table being examined, and it's like he's literally being played with by Hannibal and Dr. Sutcliffe, literally being picked apart and analyzed. We see Hannibal show Dr. Sutcliffe the drawing of the clock, and he's like, oh, okay, something's clearly wrong with him. Interesting thing about this whole encephalitis diagnosis is the man that Jack Crawford is based off of had encephalitis when working for the FBI, and it almost killed him. Encephalitis is a super rare disease. It's like the swelling of the brain, and it usually results in death. So people being able to survive it, super rare. And Hannibal kind of jumps on this, and he's like, being able to study this on a live patient, super rare. You know, and doctors, they have egos and they want to be able to discover things first and write in medical journals. And Hannibal definitely plays to this man's ego in getting him to not tell Will about the encephalitis diagnosis. And Hannibal's like, we know so little about the brain. There are so many discoveries to be made here. This shot is cut between Will getting his brain scanned and him being under the bed as the murderer kind of watching the water drip down, and Beth LeBeau, the victim, walking in. So it's just like cutting in between him being tested and him in the scene of this crime. He is even struggling with his mental sanity in this moment in this machine. His jawline is so crazy here, but it's intercut with just the scenes of this murder and his torture. And then we find out that his encephalitis is even more interesting still. It's exactly half of his brain that's inflamed. The right side is completely inflamed. And they're like, it's this very specific type of encephalitis. It's only going to get worse. And Dr. Sutcliffe's like, well, what do you smell on me? Please diagnose me now. But Hannibal's clever, and he says, opportunity. I smell opportunity on you. And they decide not to tell Will about his encephalitis and continue to study it, which is fucking crazy. Not telling Will about the encephalitis is such a crazy thing. I think it's crazy that he is able to get this doctor to agree to this, and I think you kind of see the foreshadowing of him building up to this moment where he's going to be like, we're not going to tell him. And I think it's a really, again, good reminder of how well known Hannibal is in this field and how people trust him, because this is an incredible moment of malpractice that they both commit, and they act like it's for the sake of science. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with you neurologically, Will. It's probably mental health. Our machines can't tell you that you are mentally ill. sorry. This is so crazy. He's just like, nothing's wrong with you. Meanwhile, half of his brain is inflamed. And then we cut to Hannibal and Jack by the fire having a drink. This fire is a very reflective place for Hannibal. He has conversations with multiple people here. They're talking about Will and putting him at risk. Well, I would rather him go a little mad than other innocents lose their lives. And I think Will would feel the same way. Jack says that. And I think he's right. And that's like one of Will's struggles throughout the series is he is sacrificing himself for the greater good, and it's just absolutely killing him. And Hannibal's like, Will's innocent. He's an innocent. He is one of the good ones. And Jack is like, he will always fight his way back. He will always come to the light side. He will always figure it out in the end. I trust that. And Hannibal's like, maybe not always. Hannibal just drops it. Oh yeah, we took Will to a brain doctor and nothing was wrong with him. Hannibal does a really good job. One of the way he like manipulates is he kind of sets up everything around him. So now Jack knows that they tested him for a brain disorder and he came out with a clean bill of health. He is fighting this mental illness, and we find out later that this is all being done to frame Will for the Chesapeake Ripper murders. But he's building this kind of seed. He's planting it now. Will doesn't have any brain disorders. Will has mental illness he's denying. He's losing time. He is struggling with the goodness versus the badness versus separating himself. He is planting these seeds early and now. Hannibal tells Jack that Will can't just reflect on these crime scenes. He's absorbing them. And is it making him bad? Like, this is something to keep in mind. This is the first kind of hint of being like, did Will do this murder? Like, is he capable of murder? Is he losing his mind and that's causing him to kill people? Like, Hannibal is very, very deliberate about planting these ideas in everyone's head very early. This next scene confused me so bad the first time I watched it. Will goes back to the crime scene at night with a flashlight and is kind of poking around it, which but how could this possibly go wrong? We notice the bird cage is empty. He's looking around with the flashlight, not turning any lights on for some reason. It makes fucking no sense. Like, I would assume the lights still work at this house. He goes back to the bedroom where the woman died and sees the blood stains on the floor and, oh, okay. He tried to turn the light on and it doesn't work, so I take it back. We see all of her horse memorabilia. We see we juxtapose with all the scary blood stains on the floor and Will's footprints in it. And he checks the time to make sure that he understands where he is and who he is. It's 10:36. I'm in Greenwood, Delaware. My name is Willgraham. You can see him kind of being like grounding himself and being like, okay, this moment is real, I think. But then we see somebody under the bed and she doesn't look human and it's super scary. And this is where I got really confused. I was like, is this a dream or not? And I think that's one of the strengths of this episode is because Will is like officially losing his mind. We know he has the encephalitis. We know he's struggling between reality and these hallucinations. So at what moment is this real or in his mind? And I thought that this was in his mind, this person under the bed, because then she darts out from under the bed. He goes to grab her arm and then like pulls a sleeve of her skin off, which again confused the shit out of me. And then it cuts to him being confused in the woods. He loses time again. Is it real? Is it fake? Where are we? How did he get here? Like, did he actually go to her house? Like, there is no peace for the watcher here. We don't understand what's real and what's not. We are in Will's head as him being an unreliable narrator, and we don't know what's going on. It was 10:30 and now it's 1 a.m. and he's in Delaware and he has no idea where those hours went. He calls out to the woods, and you're alive. And I'm like, you're like, oh, is he saying I'm alive, me, Willgraham is alive? Or is he saying that person that was under the bed, hey, you're alive? We are back at Greenwood, Delaware now with Beverly and Will. Will has brought Beverly to the crime scene. Even she's like, why did you bring me and not Jack or like somebody more important? This is why I love the friendship between Will and Beverly, because I think she's genuinely the only person that cares about him like a friend and she can actually trust him. He thinks he can trust Hannibal. He thinks he can trust Jack, but I think Beverly is one of the few people that doesn't have an ulterior motive. So having her here is very reassuring. And Will's like, I'm not entirely sure what I saw was real. And because Beverly's a badass, she's like, well, let's prove it, baby. I'm a scientist, let's fucking prove it. And Beverly was a good choice to bring because Will's like, you know, I grabbed her arm and the whole thing separated like a glove, and Beverly immediately connects the dots and is like, okay, clearly diseased. That's why she didn't bleed. And that kind of lines up with the evidence that we have. No circulation, no blood. And Beverly's like, what did you do with the skin flap? And Will's like, I don't know. And she's like, the fuck do you mean you don't know? I also like this scene too, because you see Beverly like looking very worried about Will and being like, what is happening? There's like genuine concern here. She was sickly, malnourished, jaundiced. Something is wrong with her. She is clearly sick. This murderer. Beverly and Will make the connection that she mutilated this person's face because for some reason she can't see faces. And they're slowly learning more about this murderer, and she may not have known that she killed this woman, and she's clearly going through some kind of like psychotic break, this like deranged break. And this is another good moment that kind of builds up to Will being framed later, where Beverly's like, why did she come back here? And Will's like, she came back to convince herself she didn't commit this murder. And Beverly's like, is that why you came back? It's this first moment where even Beverly is like, is he capable of committing murder? Is he losing his mind? Should I be concerned? And this is important to remember for season 2. So tuck that back into your brain of the work that's being done here now. And Will's like, I know I didn't kill this woman. Do you? Do you? Beverly reveals that there's a lot of speculation going on around Willgraham at the FBI, and how everyone's saying that Jack Crawford put him right up to the edge of a cliff, and Will is able to push himself over it, and he has lost his mind, which again is some great language, knowing what the series finale is in season 3 about this pushing yourself over a ledge. Again, catalog it for later. Will reveals that the killer can't accept her reality. And that's something that Will is struggling with too. So I think he finds a lot of sympathy in this killer. He says, I feel relatively sane, and you can see Beverly just not believing him. And she is definitely always in his corner. So like, even if she's not believing him, something must not be right. Cut back to Hannibal and Will having therapy again. He's like literally sitting at Hannibal's desk, which I just think is so funny, because it's like usually when you go to your therapist's office, you're not like sitting at their desk because they're married. And you see him drawing the clock, and it's correct through Willgraham's eyes. But as we know, he's not drawing the clock correctly. The camera work is a lot of fun here because we see it in Will's perspective and then in Hannibal's perspective. And it's just really visually satisfying the way we're seeing Will's mental illness, encephalitis, portrayed. And Hannibal plays really dumb here, which is just genius, because he's like, I briefly spoke to Dr. Sutcliffe. Do you want to tell me kind of what happened in that appointment? And Will's like, there's nothing to tell, because apparently there's nothing wrong with me. And Hannibal's like this fake ally. He's like, we'll keep looking for answers, Will. We'll keep searching, knowing full well he has encephalitis. And Hannibal's like, can I run some tests on you maybe? And Will's like, I'm sorry, will you publish them? Because then the answer is no. And Hannibal's like, I'll make it anonymous enough that nobody will know it's you. Only if it's gonna help other people. And he's like, do me a favor, publish it posthumously. And Hannibal's like, when you die or I die, why not both at the same time? But Will's like, whoever dies first, whatever, just keep me out of it. Ridiculous, these ridiculous men. They're so meant for each other. They should have kissed a long time ago. And then Hannibal brings up, have you considered Cotard syndrome for this young woman who killed this other young woman? It's a person where a person believes she is dead. And that's interesting because, you know, just Will and this killer have so much in common of not knowing the concept of reality and like these moments, if they're real or not. And like with Will, it's like, am I hallucinating or am I in reality? And with this woman, it's like, am I alive or am I dead? And the inability to identify others is associated with Cotard syndrome. So her inability to see faces lines up, because there are parts of the brain that when they're not working properly, you're not able to identify everyone's by their face. So we're under the assumption that this woman reached out to someone she knew, the victim, to identify them, to kind of get this grasp and this footing in reality. And when she went to their house and couldn't identify them, got mad and killed them. And then we cut to Will having another fitful sleep, which is, we get a little bit of this every episode, a little twitchy Will in his bed, sweating. Pan to the outside of his house, and we find, oh God, this woman followed him. She's watching him. A really well done episode 2, because the murderer, we don't really see a lot of her face. It's very much like when you don't show the monster, they become a lot scarier. You show bits and pieces of your face. We see she has like very gaunt eyes, but we're not given this full visual of her, which is a very common tactic in scary movies and television. It's something that's done in Jaws, and that's where I learned about it first, where it's like you don't see the whole shark until the end, and it's because it kind of lets your mind fill in the blanks with scary details. Like, we can only see bits and pieces of her. We don't have the whole puzzle. Our minds fill in the blanks, and it's kind of scary. We don't know how big the shark is. We don't know how scary she is. We're just kind of filling in those blanks with what we have. But she's just watching him. Nothing happens. Cut back to the FBI, where we've identified the victim as Georgia Mädchen. In German, Mädchen means young woman. Just a fun fact. We meet her mother, who's like, yeah, she's kind of been sick her whole life and a little crazy, and I've never really known what to do with her. We keep taking her to doctors, and the doctors are like, nothing is wrong. That's the thing about mental illness, is like there's no real way to diagnose it because it's not tangible, and there are no solutions. It's just kind of managing your expectations. And this reminds me of the scene a couple episodes ago where Will and Jack are talking to the one victim, the one murderer's wife, the husband had cancer, and that's kind of how Jack realizes that his wife has cancer. Will is listening to Georgia Mädchen's mother talk about mental illness and how hard it is to diagnose, and he's relating to that heavily. He's like, shit, this is not tangible. Like, am I just going to struggle my whole life to try and find solutions? Am I just going to put a band-aid over a bullet wound at this point? He relates very heavily to this murderer, but in like a very sympathetic way, not in a very like I want to kill people way. It's a very like derealization, struggling with reality, struggling with a diagnosis. Doctors have not been able to help. It's just a very helpless place to be. The mother reveals that the daughter from a young age thought she was already dead, which is a symptom of this rare disorder she has. George's mom even mentions that she got brain scans done and there was no results. So it's just like hitting very close to home for Will. She says it's rarely about finding solutions. It's more about managing expectations. And that just sits so heavily with Will. You see it on his face. Like, his fate is sealed in his mind. Like, he is just fucked. And, you know, afterwards, Jack meets Will, and Will just looks at him and is like, oh, are you managing your expectations? Presumably about him. Because Will is now being like, yeah, I don't have anything wrong with my brain. I'm just crazy. And Jack says, no, I'm changing my expectations. And he starts talking about Miriam Lass and how when she died, he had to pack up his office and it was very overwhelming and he wanted to just leave because he got her killed. And Will tries to remind him, oh, hey, you didn't kill Miriam Lass, the Chesapeake Ripper did, but Jack very much feels this sense of obligation towards her and responsibility, and he feels that towards Will as well. And Jack's like, it didn't feel that way to me. I felt like I killed her. And Will tries to rationalize it by being like, she was a student, I'm a teacher, I'm much more experienced. And Jack's like, I don't care. I feel responsible for you. It feels the same to me, whether how you feel it or not. And Jack is kind of questioning, being like, why haven't you quit? Now, I don't want you to quit. You have an opportunity to quit, but like, what is keeping you here if you know that it's killing you? And Jack is like, I think this chaos and this insanity and this darkness has created stability for you, and that's why you stay around. Stability is good for you, Will. Will kind of eats him up. He's like, stability requires a strong foundation. My moorings are built on sand. And then Jack, this is very good dialogue because Jack's like, I'm not sand. I'm bedrock, baby. Which is really accurate to Jack, right? Jack is bedrock. He is very strong. But the thing about bedrock is it's not very forgiving. And Jack is not very forgiving. He is not bendable. He is not pliable. And while he may be bedrock, Will needs somebody with a little more bend, in my opinion. And then Jack says, when you doubt yourself, you don't have to doubt me too. Again, a nice little line and something to remember down the line when, you know, Will is being framed for the Ripper murders and there is no stability around him. Everyone's like, you can trust me, you can trust me. Jack's like, don't doubt me, but like, this does change. He cues Will up now to be like, you can trust me, you can trust me, you can trust me, you can trust me, but he can't. I love this next scene. We see Hannibal with Dr. Sutcliffe feeding him dinner at his house. It's a pig foot. It's like prosciutto. He's slicing it off, but we can see that it's a pig, right? It's not a person foot. Pigs in the Hannibal universe are very important. We see later with Mason Verger and the pig farm, but also Hannibal sees pigs as very different than humans. Like, humans are not animals, they're pigs. But the interesting thing about pigs is they're actually very similar to people in their DNA, and that is why they can be used on like science experiments to see to compare with like people, like they might do it on a pig corpse to like test a hypothesis. Like this is a thing that happens. But the concept of pigs and humans being similar is very, very much weaved throughout the entire series. And Hannibal is breaking down this special pig and how it's fattened and cured and like prepared a certain way and how it's very rare. And he's like, is it really superior to any other pig? Or is it a matter of reputation preceding product? And Dr. Sutcliffe says it's irrelevant because if the person eating it thinks it's superior, then it is. Again, this concept of reality and perception and like these doctors discussing these like high level subjects that Will is also struggling with on a more granular personal level. Belief determines value. So he's saying if you believe it to be true, then you know, the value is there. And then Dr. Sutcliffe is like, how did you get your pig? Willgraham. We know you're fond of rare people, Hannibal. How did you find this little piggy? And Hannibal's like, he has a vivid imagination. It's beautiful. And we know Hannibal is attracted to beauty. So like the imagination part of Will is what draws him in. And the doctor's like, okay, so you set his mind on fire to analyze it. And you see the doctor kind of testing his boundaries. Dr. Sutcliffe being like, okay, so at what point do we put out this fire that is Will Graham? Are you going to let him burn? Like, how far are you going to take this? And you can kind of see like his own liability in the question here. And Hannibal's like, but Will is my friend. I'll put out the fire when it's necessary. And it's like, babe, it's been necessary. He has fucking encephalitis. You can kind of see Dr. Sutcliffe questioning his decisions. He's like, Will has asked for more tests. Hannibal's like, don't worry, now that we know what it is, we can actively hide it from him. And you can see Dr. Sutcliffe is kind of uncomfortable with that idea all of a sudden. Sealed his own fate with this one, I fear. So Will has asked for more tests, as we know. So cut back to Will at the hospital, back in this machine. I don't know if it's an MRI or CT or whatever, but he's back in this machine. The Dr. Sutcliffe is doing another test, but Hannibal's not there. So is he going to tell him the truth or not? Who knows? We see Will in the machine, and then we see him exit the machine, but the doctor's nowhere in sight. I think this scene is so funny. It's so good, but it's so funny to me because like Will just gets out of this machine and he's like, okay, all the lights are off. The doctor's not here. What is going on? But then he just like puts his clothes back on and leaves. Like nothing happened. He should be more alarmed in this moment. Where is the doctor? The fuck? You see him wandering around in his little gown, but then he puts his regular clothes back on. Lame. You see him walking out of the doctor's office. Again, not as concerned as he should be that the doctor just abandoned him in the machine. But then he passes by a door with blood on the handle and he's like, shit. Lo and behold, Dr. Sutcliffe has been just completely like cut open, just like the victim in the beginning. Just absolutely mutilated. Another really big, excellent prop. Jack has been called to the scene. Beverly has been called to the scene. She reassures him that Will has absolutely no blood on him. So there's absolutely no way that he committed this murder. There's no evidence. You can't commit a crime like this and have no blood on you. Jimmy Price says that the scissors that were used to kill Dr. Sutcliffe have the same bits of skin that the other victim had, indicating it's you know, Georgia Machin. It was an MRI, by the way. Will was not confused this time. He was like, no, I just woke up from this like procedure and like suddenly the doctor wasn't there. So it's assumed that Georgia continued to follow Will and killed the doctor while he was getting his procedure done, assuming it was Will. And Jack's like, okay, so then why is she targeting you? And he's like, I love to collect strays, you know that. But when I was in the woods, I was like, hey, you're alive, which is something she struggles with. Maybe she heard me and maybe she formed this bond with me. Will then goes home. We see that he's sleeping. It's exactly midnight. His dogs start to growl, which again is a really good indicator of whether it's real or not, because usually his dogs don't react if he's imagining something. But his dogs are kind of reacting to something, all of them. Poor babies. And Will realizes that Georgia Machin is under the bed because I don't think she was trying to attack Will, right? Will's a safe space for her, someone who's kind of understanding. And we see her under the bed. A great little jump scare, but Will calms her and is like, hey, Georgia, I see you. Think of who you are. You're alive. And then she reaches out her hand and they have this like very connecting, highly empathetic, beautiful moment. And it's this kind of moment for Will where he's like, hey, we're in this together. I got you. And she's like, am I alive? The music is really, really good. It's just like this realization, connecting moment, sweet moment for Will. It's just like the sweetness of Will Graham like continues to prevail. Because like, yes, did she kill a bunch of people? Them touching hands, like it's just beautiful. We see she's now in the hospital. She is in this like sealed chamber. Will is watching her. They think she's going to recover. She's being treated like a burn victim. They think she's going to recover, potentially with electroconvulsive therapy. Hannibal's more worried about Will, and Jack's like, didn't your colleague just die? Oh yeah, right, my bad. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm sad about that too. But Will's alive, so we care about that more. And Jack's like, I really want to talk to this woman when she comes to. I wonder if she saw anything. I wonder if she has any answers. And Hannibal delivers this great line, again, a nice little double entendre. He's like, I hope for her sake she doesn't remember very much. And that is because it is revealed to us at the end of the episode that Hannibal was the one that killed Dr. Sutcliffe and made it look like it was Georgia. And then she was following Will. She saw Hannibal and he handed her the scissors, which is how her DNA ended up on the scissors. But this is our first visualization, our first view of Hannibal's plastic suit. I love the plastic suit. Who doesn't love the plastic suit? But it's such a good characterization for Hannibal. Again, the styling in the show, the way everyone is dressed down to every single detail is ridiculous and funny and beautifully done. Like the fact that Hannibal, I just imagine like bryanfuller sitting around in a circle with like the writers and being like, all right, even when he's killing people, he doesn't remove the suit, right? Even in these moments where he's doing unhinged shit and like cutting people up and like making art out of them, no, the suit has to stay on. So what does he do? He wraps himself like a piece of furniture in an Italian grandma's house. It's just plastic suit. And it's just like plastic suit over regular suit instead of wearing just like, I don't know, sweats under plastic suit. Like it just is like the most like fancy boy, ridiculous style choice, and it fits so well for Hannibal. And I know that Mads Mikkelsen has talked about the suit before and how it was like very hot to wear, and props to him because I could never act in a plastic suit. Like I'm literally filming my podcast right now with like the multiple lights on me and I'm like hot as fuck, and I can't imagine adding a plastic suit to the mix. But this is the first we get of the murder plastic suit. And the scene is great with Georgia as well because we see it in her perspective of her not being able to see Hannibal's face. So from the get, we know that she's not going to be able to identify him by his face because she can't see them. But we see Hannibal hand her the scissors and then walk out of the room. So that's how her DNA got on there. But, oh, he committed the murder, baby. Because I think Dr. Sutcliffe was going to tell Will that he was sick. And that was now a liability for Hannibal. We see her slowly waking up after that memory. And the episode ends with this air of mystery. It's kind of rare that we get continuations of these procedural like characters throughout season 1. So like it's like, okay, are we gonna get Georgia in the next episode? Of assuming yes, and like where is that going to head? Is she gonna be able to remember? Is she gonna crack this open? Is she going to reveal, who Hannibal is to everybody? And does Hannibal foresee that coming? And we think so, yes. Where he's like, God, I hope she doesn't remember anything, but if she does, she's going to be in trouble. So next episode, we will delve into that. And I'm so excited because, again, we get Chilton back. My baby, he's only in 2 episodes this season. Season 2 is where we kind of get more of his storyline. And season 2 is my favorite. And I cannot wait to get into that with you guys. Only a couple more episodes before we hit that year mark of Quantifiably Bitchy. I can't believe it. I'm going to try to plan something lovely for you guys for being here. But yeah, that's season 1, episode 10, Buffet Froid. One of the main, I think, themes is identity, reality versus derealization, mental illness versus like something that is very quantifiable through science, knowing who you are, knowing what's real and what's not. These are themes that we get throughout the entirety of season 1, and it's definitely to build up to Will officially losing his mind and being framed, as the Chesapeake Ripper for the season 2. So Brian does a really good job kind of building the blocks up to that. And when you watch it for the first time, you don't see them, but rewatching them, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, that's why that happened. That's why Hannibal has been building these blocks up from episode 1. You know what I mean? Like he is planning, he is always paying attention. And that's why we should always be paying attention when we watch them interact with these other characters. So yeah, I loved it as always. I cannot wait until next episode. Do me a solid, follow me everywhere. I am Quantifiably Bitchy without that I in bitchy. Like, comment, and subscribe. I want to know your thoughts. Tell me everything. Let me know if I got anything wrong or if you disagree. Like, I want to know. But yeah, my name is Raquella. It has been lovely hanging out with you guys, and I will see you in a month. Bye.